Kovalev stops Anthony Yarde in the 11th round in a very exciting fight in Chelyabinsk, Russia. Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Rem Star Says So. It wasn't meant to be. It wasn't Anthony's Yard, and Sergey Kovalev is still the WBO light heavyweight champion. What can I say, guys? That was a fight that had a lot to offer from start to finish. Anthony Yarde, with only 18 professional fights and 12 amateur fights, decided to do what many people wouldn't do, and he got on his bike and went to Chelyabinsk in Russia to fight Sergey Kovalev in his own backyard. One thing you can say about Anthony Yarde is that was pure bravery. Regardless of what you want to say, whether it was the right idea, whether it was the wrong idea, so on and so forth, you cannot fault Anthony Yarde for his bravery in this fight. Jesus Christ, the man only had 18 fights and went over to fight Kovalev in his backyard when Frank Warren was unable to get the fight in London because they lost out on the purse bids. For the first couple of rounds, it was all Kovalev. Anthony Yarde, I don't know if it was the occasion that got to him, or if he had sort of stage fright, or if he was nervous, or if he was just trying to suss out Kovalev. But the first, I'd say, 4 or 5 rounds, Kovalev was literally just chalking up round by round with not really much reply and very little effort. Anthony Yarde, I don't know what was going on with him in the first 4 or 5 rounds, but he literally wasn't doing anything. Sergey Kovalev, to his absolute appreciation, he boxed beautifully. He boxed behind the jab at times, and he boxed with a high jab, a low jab, a mid jab. He mixed it up. That was one of the best jabbing performances I've seen for a while, especially for a man that a lot of people thought might be spent at the age of, how old is he? 36, maybe 37. Some people look at Sergey Kovalev in his 2 fights against Andre Ward and think, okay, this man is pretty much finished because Andre Ward beat him unanimously and then Andre Ward managed to knock him out. But that wasn't the case. Sergey Kovalev clearly still has a bit left in the tank. Now, I'm not saying that he's up there with the other killers at 175, but clearly, in terms of fighting an up and coming fighter like Anthony Yarde, he's still got what it takes. Now, a lot of people are saying that Anthony Yarde is struggling to make the weight here. I don't really think that's the case. He weighed in 173.9. He weighed less than Kovalev did on the scales, which was quite shocking to me because I thought he was definitely going to come in at 175 on the button or sort of 174.8, something like that. But yeah, he was well under the weight. So people that say that Anthony Yarde struggles to make weight, I don't know what you guys are talking about because, he looked his usual muscle bound self, but he was well under the weight. Well under the weight. I don't know how dehydrated he was, but on the night of the fight, he looked fine going into the ring. One thing I can say about Anthony Yarde is maybe he looked a little bit too bloody relaxed and confident. He came down the ring doing some really stupid dance, and I didn't really understand what that was about. And at times he just didn't let his friggin' hand glow. He didn't let his hands glow. He kept doing that Floyd Mayweather shoulder roll, and I don't understand why, because he's not good enough as a fighter, and he wasn't throwing the right hand. I think he started throwing hands around round 6 and 7, um, but a lot of the time it was telegraphed. It's like Kovalev could see that right hand coming from 2 years away, and he was just sidestepping and making Yarde miss, and that's what was really starting to wear Yarde down. And then I think Yarde became punch drunk. I mean, Tunde Ajayi says that Anthony Yarde doesn't drink, but he was drinking jabs for breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack, and evening meal. I don't really get what was going on. The defense was terrible. Um, yeah, the defense was terrible from Anthony Yarde, and I'm not really understanding what exactly he was trying to achieve there. He did start to come into the fight in the seventh round. I'd say the last minute to 90 seconds of the seventh round, he started to take over and he started wearing him down, chipping him away, and wearing like just doing shots to the body. In the eighth round, Anthony Yarde unleashed pure hell. He hit him with everything he had, plus the kitchen sink, and he had him right. When I thought he was going to finish him, he went for a right hand. Kovalev managed to sidestep it, and Anthony Yarde went plunging into the ropes. And at that moment, I knew Anthony Yarde wasn't only going to lose, he was going to get knocked out. When it came to the end of that eighth round, Sergey Kovalev's trainer, the microphones picked up, said, "If you take any more shots like this, I'm going to pull you out of this fight." And that was like, it was the writing on the wall. Could Anthony Yarde go and land another big couple of shots on Kovalev? Well, the answer was no. Anthony Yarde did not recover. That minute in the eighth round just wasn't enough for him. And from there, Sergey Kovalev just started to take over. I think Sergey Kovalev managed to get a second wind in the ninth round, and he just started unleashing merry hell on him. Punches, jabs, one, twos, left hooks, and Anthony Yarde just kept coming with the same left hook, um, the same left hook jabs and the same right hands. And Kovalev was seeing it from a mile off. I don't know how Anthony Yarde managed to last for so long. And in the 10th round, he looked absolutely spent. He was walking down Kovalev trying to hit him. And what happened was Kovalev was literally just throwing left hands, right hands, and Anthony Yarde was eating those punches for breakfast in the hope that he might be able to land a big right hand, which never came. As it came down to it in the 11th round, Anthony Yarde looked like the referee should have just stopped that fight, and Kovalev managed to finish him with a high left jab. I mean, he hit the ground like King Kong fell off the entire States building, and that's when you knew it was over. I don't think the referee even bothered started to count. And as soon as Kovalev jabbed him and Yarde went down, he started celebrating. That was it. Anthony Yarde, after the fight, you could tell he was in bits. He was a state. He couldn't. He was beside himself. But the fact is, he wasn't ready. Everybody said he wasn't ready. The fact is, I picked Anthony Yarde because I thought, he was going to go in there and find a way to blow him out. But I always knew if it went the distance, I knew that he couldn't beat him on points. And I also thought to myself, boy, in these late rounds, he's either going to knock him out or those big bulky muscles are going to come into play. Just like Anthony Joshua, Anthony Yarde has a issue with Anthony Yarde has a issue with fitness, and I think getting oxygen into those big bulky muscles in the late rounds really start to take its toll. I think the issue with Anthony Yarde is that he doesn't have the right conditioning, and he needs to understand that if he wants to be a boxer, maybe he needs to look at changing his physique. I don't think being a big, bulky guy. Um, I don't think being a big, bulky guy is necessary for professional boxing, and clearly, all those muscles aren't really adding anything extra to the punches. Anthony Joshua found that out the hard way, and Anthony Yarde found that out the hard way. Maybe the name Anthony is just maybe Anthony is a cursed name for British fighters. Who knows? But what will happen next? I think Anthony Yarde needs to go back to the drawing board. He needs to go back to fighting maybe like knockover fights, and then maybe he needs to go the traditional route, pick up a British title. Then he needs to fight maybe Boetsi. He needs to fight some of those little knockover cans that Eddie Hearn has laying around, and maybe fight for a European belt. The fact is with Anthony Yarde is that I don't think he's going to beat any of the top guys at 174. I mean, at 175. I mean, Berta Bitev and the other guy are having a unification fight. Even if he fought Kovalev again in the year, I'd probably pick Kovalev. He wouldn't beat Bivol. But there's a lot of British fights here. But is there any money in domestic British boxing? I don't know. So I don't know. What's your thoughts, guys? I mean, I think Anthony Yarde's got nothing to be ashamed of. But, he was levels apart. And a lot of people predicted this because we just didn't know how good he is. Well, now we know how good he is, and he's not good enough. Anyway, let me know your thoughts. Hit like, hit subscribe, press that bell icon, share this video, drop me a comment. That's the end of the show because Remstar says so.